Socrates has been discussing the ideal political arrangement, and we've talked a little bit about this, about how it is a hierarchical structure. And he finally asserts that the best political arrangement would have the wisest human beings as the rulers or the leaders. And Socrates claims that philosophers are the wisest human beings. Well, the boys out of Montas and Glaucon are a little confused by that. They don't know what a philosopher is. And so they ask Socrates to enlarge upon this. What do you mean by philosopher? And so Socrates says, well, he has given, we've already seen a little bit of a definition. Finally, he comes to say that the important thing about a philosopher is what a philosopher knows. A philosopher knows what is real. A philosopher knows the things that are highest. He even went so far as to say a philosopher knows the perfect model of the good. And again, the boys don't understand what he means by that. This is something of a vague subject. And so Socrates begins to try to explain what he's talking about what it is that a philosopher knows. And he says, to make it clearer, he will tell an allegory. Actually, he will tell two allegories. But an allegory is something that stands for something else. And so he tells the boys clearly, I'm going to give you an allegory. It will be an arrangement or something that's clearly meant to stand for something else so that we don't miss that. And the allegory that he tells first is called the allegory of the divided line. And so Socrates says, and this line and the different sections, it will be divided in several places here. It's going to come to stand for really kind of the structure of reality in our world. He says, imagine a line drawn from A at the bottom to E at the top. And it will be intersected by lines at B, C, and D. Okay, so we're here. It says, okay, at the bottom of the line, the section at the bottom from A to B, all right, represents things that are less real than others. And it would be things like shadows, reflections, images. The reflection that you see in the water, Socrates would say, is not as real as the person who gives that reflection. And so Socrates claims there's little to be learned from this class of objects here, from A to B. Now from B to C would represent the material world, the world as we understand it, the physical world. Now, Socrates claims, and this is Plato, that this too, the material world, is unreliable as a source of knowledge because it's subject to change. Things are always changing in our world. And to Plato, that means it can't be real. And that means we can't have certain knowledge, these class of objects. So no real knowledge can be gained by the study of things in the material world. That is a fairly radical claim. This is the world as we know it, as we experience it. And Plato is telling us it's not real. Now, as we go up the line, and when we're from A to C, this represents the world of becoming. Things that are always changing, and as Plato says, if something is constantly changing, it cannot be real. But now as we move above C, we'll go first to CD. Everything from C up would represent the world of being. These will be things that are real, Plato says. And so from line C to line D, this would represent mathematical thought. Figures, formulas, and these things are permanent. They are fixed. And they are fixed and permanent, and they don't change because they are not linked to the world of the senses. And as a result of this, certain knowledge is possible here, certain knowledge is not possible down here. Now, what does this mean when I say things like mathematical knowledge are not linked to the world of the senses? If I ask you, if I wrote the word on the board here, if I wrote the word book, B-O-O-K, okay, could you show me a book? Well, yes, okay. But now, when we're talking about mathematics, you can see that I have put 2 up here, okay? It's markings on the board that stand for 2. And if I ask you, could you show me a 2? You can't show me a 2. I mean, you could show me 2 books or 2 chairs. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm saying, could you show me a 2? So that you can see that we're talking about something now when we move here that is not linked to the world of the senses, not subject to change. And Plato says, therefore, it is more real. And certain knowledge is possible here. But that's not the highest possible knowledge, Plato suggests, or Socrates suggests as he tells. Even higher and more significant would be represented by the very top of the line, from D to E. And this would be what actually underlies experience. Plato suggests that for something to exist in the material world, there has to be a pattern or a blueprint for it first. And this section of the line represents these patterns or blueprints. And the word, there are 2 words that both mean the same thing. But Plato will use both of these words to suggest what he means by these patterns or blueprints for everything that exists. He calls them the forms or the ideas. That means the same thing. When they were ready to build this building, Hooper, well, what do? Do people from a construction crew just show up with boards and concrete and wires and just start haphazardly putting things together? No. What do they have first? They have a blueprint. They have a blueprint that tells them exactly how everything will go. Plato suggests that is how things work in our world. There is a form or a blueprint for everything, for a tree, for a bush, all of these. And this is what, and so the knowledge of these forms or ideas is the highest type of knowledge according to Plato, and this is what a philosopher knows. Well, how do you learn about the forms and the ideas? You learn through, come back over here, guidance and dialectic. Through the guidance of a philosopher and through dialectic, the question and answer process that Plato favors that is meant to draw out a priori knowledge. And so the movement toward true knowledge is from the world of becoming, down here, into the world of being, up here, where certain and universal knowledge is possible. And there is great faith in mathematical reasoning and in abstract thought to be able to find patterns and understand things. If I wrote the numbers 1 through 100 on the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 100, and I turned to you and I said, okay, add those numbers up. Well, that would take you a long time to do. Unless what? Unless you could express that in a formula. If you could see the pattern there and express it in a formula, you have, and you can do that, you have the answer in a matter of seconds. That is philosophical knowledge to Plato. It's finding patterns that underlie things. Socrates now seeks to enlarge this picture with a second famous allegory. And this is called the allegory of the cave.